There we go. The first one I put in was just sort of, you had asked a lot of questions about the metrics related to diffs and what was generated and what was viewed. And I was trying to figure out if there's anything else you need, or what, if you like have an expectation of me trying to figure this out, or what you want to do on that one. And just to limit some of the back and forth, because I know I'll be just make it a little bit easier to get through this if we're trying to get to something.
Yeah, no, at the moment, no. So it's low. I actually yesterday I found out a number that I placed in one of the, like a slide deck that was talking about merge request sizes that I put there some months ago. And so it was probably like March maybe, or April. And it said that on .com, it was 4% of all diffs viewed were using the single file mode, but now here this number is showing as 2. But yeah, regardless, it's a low, very low number still. And that's what I just wanted to know if we were tracking this, and so that we can see how it goes over time. So right now, no further action here. The only thing that could affect this is prioritizing this research, that we would look closer at single file mode. So we already have the quantitative data. We don't have qualitative data to understand if users like it, why they like it, if they think it's preferable to multi-file mode, always or only sometimes. So asking those questions that the data can't answer for us, to understand if we need to double down on announcing this feature and making it known, because we haven't made any, I mean, other than the release post, we haven't made any announcements to it in the UI. So yeah, it's just a matter of deciding if this is something we want to prioritize or not.
What is your thought on prioritizing research here? Just sort of like off the cuff, what do you think?
I think it's valuable to answer these questions. If anything, for us to understand, if it's something that we should be paying attention to or not so much, or if it's just something that we can tell people that are migrating from tools like Gerrit or others, or Crucible, where they use this kind of mode, to say, hey, don't worry, we have this, you can enable it, and it's there. So I think it's useful for us to understand it, especially now that we've released this feature for already some months. So the people that are using it since the beginning already have some time using it. The question is, in comparison to other things, if we would prioritize it. And I'm not sure, because what's interesting about this mode is that it makes the merge request UI a little bit similar to an IDE, where you have to click to jump from file to file. And one of the things that we've heard repeatedly is that often developers check out the branches to review them locally. And when they are reviewing the branches locally, I imagine they do it in their IDE, and they go from file to file. So they're effectively in a single file mode. So I wonder if there's a connection here, and if single file mode is as valuable as multi-file mode. and what we've seen already is that, at least for us as a company developing GitLab, is that it helps with performance. And the loading is much faster. And so we could have a much better experience if we pushed more for single file mode. But again, I'm not sure if it's the right thing to do. So yeah, I don't have a specific answer to that.
No, I think that's fair. I was just curious, sort of, yeah, how you were thinking about it. I didn't have a specific answer I was looking for either, so I don't have a good feeling about single file mode in terms of being the right or wrong way to review. It just feels like to me, it feels like the way people use it right now is sort of like a similar to how they might switch between like side by side or stacked diffs. Like it feels like one of those things that like sometimes you're looking at something and like you want that focused context, and sometimes you want the context of all of those things, and you might bounce between sort of like all of those experiences. And same with diffs. I think sometimes you want to see them left and right because you're looking to see like what changed, and sometimes inline is a little bit easier depending on like what the type of content is that you're reading. And so
yeah, that's also interesting. Yeah, I think that's a fair assumption. And it would be interesting, like let's imagine that we validate that actually the people that change those preferences, they change it very often. Maybe it would make sense to have those preferences in an easier location that you can just click back and forth between things. So I don't know. But regardless, I don't think this is the most important problem.
yeah.
But it's something that it would be interesting to figure out. Maybe once we have Annabelle on board, we would have more capacity for this. There's also a problem is that we have very low UX research capacity at the moment. We only have 2 researchers, and one of them is onboarding still, and we're hiring, I think, 4 or 5 more researchers. So, but the team right now is very small, and I know that Anne, the only researcher that at the moment we can count on, she is prioritizing just a few initiatives. One of them is the perceived performance of merge requests that I'm working on with her, and I think there's another research that she's prioritizing. Not exactly sure what it is. So
this is probably a different question. Yeah. Are we backfilling Catherine? I would assume.
Yes.
But it'll take a while for that to ramp, and then
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. You want to talk about your point before we run out of time again?
Yeah, I mean, we can just, this is an unstructured chat about this. We don't need to get to a specific conclusion. I put down some thoughts on this file. So let me share my screen for the purposes of the recording. So yeah, I added some column. I don't know if this structure makes sense or not. It was go with the flow at that point. So problem, possible things for us to do, then some issues or related issues, and then some notes of things that I was thinking about. And they're not in a particular order, but it was just that I wanted us to think about the problems and not only the solutions and the possible paths. It was interesting when I was putting this together that this one that talks about best practices and people avoiding having people do things over and over again to conform to their organization's practices. I wasn't aware that we had so many issues and popular issues related to this topic. And yeah, it's basically templating, enforcing settings and validating them. on merge options in general, like merge methods, commit messages, if people can squash or not, or delete or not source branches. And it's something that to my knowledge, we haven't been paying much attention to, except for an enhancement that we did some months ago to allow people to choose the default value of the squash commit setting, if you want to allow, enforce, encourage, and so on. Other than that, we haven't made any particular changes here. The ones I think all of them, at least to me, are important. But the ones I think stand out to me is this one, number 4, so row 4, because I think it's just trying to do deeper research on the merge request UI, because I think we have research on merge requests, but we don't have, or maybe we have this research, but it's scattered. I know that you created an issue, I think when you joined or before you were joining our group, that to have developers share their workflows when reviewing merge requests. And that's something I would like to synthesize more and have some insights about the mental models and if it changes when you're an author versus a reviewer. Because, for example, for me, these are my assumptions that like the merge request UI is cluttered. There's too much effort navigating between comments. And then sometimes you have to go to the overview tab. Other times they're in the changes tab. Things that are resolved, things that are not resolved, things that matter to you, things that don't matter to you. But also that my assumption is that the mental models change whether you're an author or reviewer. And for example, as an author, you're more interested in the comments, and reviewers are more interested in the changes, like what happened since I last viewed this, like what were the commits that were made, what were the files that were changed, were my comments addressed. In the end, I think authors and reviewers both look at comments and files, but I think they look at them differently. And I think, for example, authors probably look at the merge requests almost like a email inbox where they have to, reply to every email and make sure everything is addressed and closed. Whereas reviewers, they're just looking at the changes, and to see what will be merged. But so I think this is a very large thing that I think we need to do, in terms of possibly smaller effort. This would be an interesting one that I saw as mentioned a couple of times, that this is what people do why they go to IDEs, is that they want to navigate the code base and understand why changes to this, function, where are they being called? So, just to understand the extent of the changes. And today it's not possible to do that with merge requests. You have to have some kind of code intelligence, or you have to manually go through the repo to find things. So extending the code intelligence feature to support merge requests, or allowing you to navigate the branch, all of the code base inside of the merge requests, which is another feature request that we have, is commenting on unchanged lines in an unchanged file. So I think these two, like one really big thing and none that I don't see a specific end to, and something that it could be a bit smaller. And that is more validated. But these are just random thoughts.
Okay. I will take a look, and then I think I also owe adding some things in here, sort of some problem areas as well. So I will I'll try and work on the spreadsheet some this week. It's another short
Yeah.
week for me, so we'll see how it goes.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. You feel free to restructure it if this doesn't make sense for what you're thinking. Is it from what I added here? Is there anything that 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 pops up for you?
I think the observation you made about like sort of the best practices and the number of upvotes is really interesting. I'm continually conflicted with a lot of those because on the one hand, like I think we should be building an opinionated tool. And then on the other hand, like some people will always disagree with the opinion. And that will inevitably lead to these situations where like they don't want to use the tool or something else. And so it's, I think, a balancing act, and balancing against introducing settings and settings and settings and configuration that, like, if you sort of think about all of those issues, really the ask is like, we want more settings and configuration, which I don't know. It's just so tough for me because I feel like if we could do that, we could introduce settings and configuration all day long. But I sort of wonder if we should just more strongly say no to a lot of things. And like, I don't think we do that. And I don't know if that's the right answer or not. But I don't know. I think it's just interesting, sort of like the theme of all of those is like configuration. And that's a very touchy subject. I think, otherwise, I don't know that there's anything that necessarily jumps out. I think your line 4 is spot on in terms of what you've talked about there. I think line 2 is interesting that you've added native code intelligence and sort of associated it with like understanding the broader impact of changes. And I only say that because I think there's like sort of no adoption, very limited adoption of native code intelligence.
Why is that?
And
Do you know?
I think it's hard and it's limited support. Like I think we only support like 2 or 3 languages. And it requires you to add a CI job. So, right, like anything, all those things that have required CI have typically been a little more challenging, because we just don't have a good way to get people to do that, right? Like we have to get them to go and add that. They need to add those 7 lines to their CI jobs.
Right.
Yeah, and we only support, I think
to,
if you scroll down on this page, it shows, yeah, so we only support Go, JavaScript, and TypeScript, of which, like, you could, in theory, do the JavaScript and TypeScript stuff for us. Gitaly is written in Go, so like you could use it there, but like the main GitLab project, like we can't even really effectively like dog food this feature either.
Yeah. Yeah, there are more here that you can support. Yeah, I think this is something that could change and keep people inside of merge requests instead of having to go to their IDE. I mean, without this, I can see people using much more the VS Code extension because they have access to the merge request, but they also have access to all of these things that are valuable to them, and navigating everything. So I think we need to replicate that more inside of merge requests. But yeah, this experience is not ideal, especially not compared to, for example, GitHub. That I think I might be mistaken, but I think it's almost automatic that they have code intelligence for repositories. But
yeah, I don't know how the GitHub native one works. I think they use their own. They use a different set of libraries and it's their own stuff.
Okay, can't find it. But yeah,
Yeah. So
maybe they don't call it code
yeah,
intelligence.
but yeah, I think it's an interesting one. I think yeah, I think I want to go through some of the epics that exist and sort of also come up with some problem areas that like are maybe inside of these or other ones that I'd been thinking about. And then I think the ultimate goal, right, was find these spaces, and then the goal is how do we take these problem spaces and then figure out what we want to work on. And so I think we'll have to figure that out once we build out that spreadsheet more. So I think definitely building out the spreadsheet more first priority, and then we can figure out how we decide what we go and work on and sort of stay focused on for a period of time.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Well, thanks, Guy. Let me know when there's anything else for me to review there, and we can talk more about this later.
Awesome. Well, it was good to see you and good to catch up, and I'll see you again tomorrow, I'm sure.
Yeah.
All right.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye.
Thanks.